Hello and welcome to Upon Further Review. Semi-state is getting ready to show down this Friday night around Northeast Indiana. Well representative, by the way, of teams that are still vying for that trip down to Indy. But tonight on the podcast, we've got Brett Rump is going to come on. We'll talk a little bit with Brett about kind of up to date where we're at right now, any surprises that maybe he feels, and who would be that MVP thus far in the tournament. Then we'll have Kamari Juarez, the Snider High School wide receiver, Eastern Michigan commit. We'll talk to him. Of course, he had the big kickoff return for a touchdown, about 80 yards, when Snider was down 21-0 and looked bleak. That play alone turned the tide for the Panthers and enabled them to escape Mishawaka with a huge victory. And then we'll bring in Nick Thompson from Bishop Luers High School. The one thing about Nick is he plays both sides of the ball, and I don't know if he's a wide receiver or he's a DB, because he plays both of them well, and the University of Toledo secured his commitment. So we got two Division I kids coming on tonight talking a little football alongside Eric Dukevich. I'm the coach, Shannon Griffith. And Eric, I tell you, Luers really took control, and you could tell the difference between a team that has been there and a team that has not been there.
Yeah, I mean, they got up early in that one, and I can't say that's entirely surprising, because I think Luers, especially what they were able to do in the first couple of weeks of sectionals to really put it on their opponents, and a really solid win against East Side you throw in there as well. And so I think for this one, it was kind of one of those things being a house money game in that regard, as far as playing at home, playing at regionals, and playing against a team like Bluffton that, congratulations to them, a wonderful season to say the least. But I think, realistically, the sand in the hourglass had kind of run up on their season, but a lot to be proud of there. But yeah, Luers looked incredible, and I know we'll have Nick Thompson later. He's one of those guys that has really come on strong for that Bishop Luers team as the season has worn on, because it was kind of a slower start for him. It took for a while for him to kind of enter the fold and really play up to what we can see from him. And it's been special to watch what he's been able to do, especially in the playoff run so far. But yeah, Luers looks superior for certain around here in that Class 2A. And I think, that showed again yet Friday night.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing that it's helped Luers thus far, and this is about, helps them coming down into the 2A realm, is up front, they were able to dominate again. They established the run game. Hogue had a really good game. They were able to really move the football running the game. They got sloppy here and there during the game. It was kind of got out of sync, but, Luers, had control of the game. And Bluffton, like you said, very young team, a lot of juniors. So a lot of promising players coming back to them next year that I think will give them a shot to hopefully get back into these tournaments, because now they've got that experience. And until you get that experience in the tournament, it can be a little bit daunting of a task to get beyond it. And they played a little bit like that on Friday night, hesitant at times, maybe a little bit in awe of Luers, from that standpoint. But what a year they had. Knocked off Eastbrook. That was a monumental game to get to this game. But the other teams did well. Carroll goes to Lafayette. Jeff gets a great victory. Was able to catch the last few minutes of that game. And here's the thing. Lafayette Jeff down 21-20 had the ball on the less than one yard line on fourth down. I mean, they only need a field goal to win it. They played like they were down 6, and they went for it. They got stopped. Okay. So that was one stop for Carroll's defense. Then Lafayette Jeff gets the ball back. They drive it down again. They're in field goal range. They need 3 points. That's it. They decided to throw the football. They were in field goal range, in my opinion, and they threw a pick. And so Carroll's defense steps up in that latter part of the game to secure that hard fought win, and another team that was down for pretty much the entire game.
Yeah, and that was a really interesting play call because watching it from home myself, I was like, they're in field goal range here. Let's kind of run that clock a little bit from the Lafayette Jefferson perspective, and then kick the field goal. But yeah, and Jorge Valdez makes that incredible interception to seal that victory, and it's on to semi-state for the first time ever for the Carroll Chargers. Another one, Snider. We will talk Kamari Juarez later. I mean, they were down 21-0 in the first half, and to storm back with 35 unanswered points and then put it away late, 41-27 over a very good Mishawaka team in that wishbone offense. I think, Coach, we talk about it week in, week out because we see these different teams with the wishbone or that flex offense or that interesting style of play. I think it took Snider a little bit of time from a defensive perspective in real live game scenario to figure that out. But I think that second half, that defense came alive. Lucas Rohrbacher, Brandon Logan, they were able to really capitalize and really throw off kilter Mishawaka. And that in turn helped Snider battle back and get that huge win at the regional and head to semi-state for the first time since 2016.
Well, we'll have a chance to recap some more of these with, Adams Central win. Unfortunately, Columbia City went down to defeat to Kokomo, but let's bring in our first guests, the voice of Northeast Indiana high school sports, the voice of Mastodon basketball, Mr. Brett Rump. Rumpy, how you doing, my man?
Doing well. Things kind of went according to chalk as I predicted them on Friday night. So, feeling pretty good about how things went so far and hoping for a good week in semi-state.
Yeah, your picks came out pretty good. You're pretty close on a few of the scores, weren't you?
Not too far off. I mean, it's really hard. You got no common opponents. You really, you know that this defense might be better than any other defense they've seen, but what does that mean? Does that mean they'll, score 1 or 2 touchdowns? Does this mean they'll score 3? I mean, it's tough at this time of year. I'm just glad if I can get the winner right because some of these games, you guys had me a little nervous on Friday. I thought I was going to have like a 1-4 week, and then all of a sudden Snider and Carroll both bailed me out.
Yeah, they had some huge wins, and that's what you got to do when you play on the road in the tournament. It's you gotta hang tough. Snider, of course, had the biggest hill to climb in being down as much as they were, but they were able to find that whatever they left on the bus, because I don't think they got off the bus for the first half. But what were your thoughts of the Luers Bluffton game?
Kind of as expected. I felt like Bluffton being a younger squad, so many juniors. I feel like it was a bit of a magical run. I think the matchups, they had favorable matchups for them, teams that they could match up with pretty well. And then it was just going to be who executes better. But against Bishop Luers, I felt like it was maybe a mismatch as far as athleticism. I thought the only chance Bluffton had was if they could win the line of scrimmage. And I don't really feel like they did that. So credit to Luers all the way around. I thought they had just a solid game plan. The offense, they were able to throw it. They were able to run it. And again, I think it's important, even though it didn't pan out, I think it's important this time of year to try to put your opponent on their heels, where all of a sudden, they come in with a game plan and maybe you shake it up a little bit by getting that 2-score, 3-score advantage in the first half. And that's why I give a lot of credit to Carroll and Snider, because what they did at this time of year against the competition they're facing, that's a huge accomplishment.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one thing during the regular season to come back on an opponent, but you've got teams that are already confident, that are already playing good football, that have already won a title. And, they come out and they stomp you 21-0 at the start of the game. That takes a lot of character, resiliency. And so I give both those teams, Snider and Carroll, a ton of credit for what they did.
What, looking at the tournament, as a whole, now that we're kind of getting to that point where a lot of teams have kind of dropped to the side and everything. Any surprise teams in your mind, maybe did better than would have thought, or because I think the Summit Athletic Conference right now as a whole may be a little bit better than everybody thought.
Yeah, I mean, so far it's looking like, Carroll can compete with anybody. I think they'll obviously have the toughest test they'll face coming up this Friday. But, what Carroll was able to do on the road, Snider, of course, the #1 ranking, and the comeback on the road at Mishawaka. If there's a surprise for me in the entire tournament, it's not who won, it's who lost. Mm-hmm. And I'm still in shock over what happened in Norwell. That defense, I thought, was one of the best in the state, if not the best in the state. And for Yorktown to put up 42 points against them, I'm still in shock and just can't believe I thought if they would lose, it would be 7-3. They'd have trouble getting, I thought 9 in the box, take away the running game. And if the passing game's not there that night because of wind or conditions, maybe Norwell would have trouble offensively. But I thought the one thing they could really hang their hat on was their defense. And it was ultimately the defense that let them down. So that to me is the biggest surprise we've had in any game so far.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly, because I think we all thought that was a team that was probably going to be knocking on the state championship door. Unfortunately, like you said, they caught a team that got hot, and unfortunately, for whatever the reason, they came up short in that game. I think I heard Norwell went for 2 instead of trying to kick it and tie it and send it into overtime. And I think, that's a flip of a coin. We can all be armchair quarterbacks and say this is what we do, but that was a tough loss to see. I think the other team, I don't know, dude, I was a little surprised how well Columbia City did, just from the standpoint of they've always kind of suffered that latter part of the year with the schedule. They overcame that, and then they go down to Norwell, beat them for the NE8 championship. And then in the tournament, they caught fire. Now they ran into a really good Kokomo team. That team, they were big, but I don't know what your thoughts on some of that, dude, as well.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think just, looking back and see 3 SAC teams make it to semi-state, which doesn't happen very often, I think is impressive too, because I think so much of what we talk about in the SAC is, who's going to win the SAC, and Carroll was there all year, and then Snider comes up through the year, and then Luers, who wasn't there all year long in the SAC race, it goes on this, another great run like they always do. And all of a sudden we have 3 Fort Wayne schools. In fact, 2 of the semi-states will be in Fort Wayne, not too far apart this Friday. So with one at Carroll and one at Northrop as Snider hosts as well. So it's exciting in that regard. And I think that was probably surprising to me too, because I don't know if I necessarily saw this many teams getting out of getting to semi-state. And part of that was when we talked about Carroll, just their sectional schedule alone, starting with Penn, it was like, is week 1, are they going to get past week 1? And they've been able to live up to the challenge each week and really show that they're there with, Penns of the world. They knocked off a good Warsaw team, Lafayette Jeff on Friday, holding them off. I mean, so Carroll is getting the job done where it needs to, and I think that's been good for them as well. So that's a big part of it.
One thing that's kind of been strange about it is when you look at Carroll is, historically our 6A schools have always been in a clustered sectional, and then it's always been regional where we have trouble getting a 6A to advance. And that's because our sectional goes down and plays the sectional from the Indianapolis suburbs. Well, this year we had some of our 6A in with those Indianapolis suburbs in the sectional. None of them got out of it. And now Carroll, because they were in sectional 2, ended up going and playing a team from, what would be considered the Northwest, even though it was Lafayette, it's considered the Northwest, so that they don't go and play an Indianapolis area school until the semi-state. And so this would normally have been the round Carroll, Hamilton Southeastern that we've always seen in the regional where our teams didn't do well. The fact it's happening in a semi-state, will that change the dynamics? We'll see. But obviously it's going to be a test. But just because of the way the brackets were set up, kind of gave us an extra week with a 6A team still in there, at least an extra week.
Yeah. And what's interesting about that too is it was pointed out too is the fact that the way it was drawn, now Hamilton Southeastern played Homestead in the first round and is now playing Carroll in the semi-state.
Yeah.
And theoretically, there was a potential there when the ping pong balls were drawn that Homestead and Carroll could have met at semi-state, which would have been really weird. But obviously that didn't bear out with Hamilton Southeastern #1 in 6A, and that's who Carroll plays this weekend. And so there's, a lot of good teams left, a lot of good football to be played left. And really, if you're playing this time of year at semi-state with the Final Four in each class, you're in pretty good company and for most right where you want to be, and maybe more than you've ever thought you could be in some regards too.
Yeah, no question with that. And, I think Carroll with playing Hamilton Southeastern, I think they're ranked #1, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And so that's going to be a tough game for Carroll. Of course, the weather is supposed to be rather chilly this Friday night, as is accustomed to this time of year. So again, we talk about running the football. That has to be the priority with these games. You got to be able to run it. And Carroll, Snider, and Luers and Adams Central, you can throw in there, can run the football. Adams Central too. What they've done thus far. I mean, I was shocked by how bad they beat Carroll Flora. Weren't you, Rump, with that game, just from the standpoint of,
if we learn anything from history, it's that Adams Central, South Adams, whoever it is that comes out of that ACAC, because they have played 2As and 3As. Sometimes it's a little tougher competition than what they're going to see from teams that come out of the, I don't know, what you would call the north central part of the state or north central - western. But the point is, I wasn't shocked. I mean, I just thought that it would be a comfortable win. I thought Carroll might be somebody who could do some damage to the Adams Central defense. I thought Adams Central still going to score because, and we've talked about this before, Shannon, what Adams Central does, they execute so well that there's no way you can duplicate it at practice. There's no way you can teach your scout team to run it so that you can actually prepare for it. And it is really difficult. It took Snider a half to kind of adjust to that offense from Mishawaka. And once they did, then the Snider defense looked like the Snider defense we've seen all year. But eventually, Adams Central, they just click right down the field. And it's like, if you're going to score almost every time you get the ball, you put so much pressure on the other team. And so maybe a little bit of a margin that I didn't expect, but I still thought Adams Central was probably going to win that game comfortably. I will say this real quick, speaking of margins and influences in games. One thing I want to kind of throw in, because you guys were talking about the Carroll Lafayette Jeff game and how they went for it twice on 4th down. And here's a name that's completely out of the blue as far as a long shot MVP for the postseason, but Sebastian Lopez. And I'll tell you why. He doesn't even need to kick a field goal, and he's impacting the game. First of all, kickoffs that start teams on their 20 almost every possession. Right. I mean, that for one influences a football game and makes your defense better. And the way he boots it, it's almost always at the 20-yard line. But the other thing is, I think maybe something that went into that decision was a lack of confidence that Lafayette Jeff could keep Carroll out of field goal range because they feared the field goal kicker. And so they felt like, if we're going to win this, we're going to have to get 6 on this drive because we don't want to give Carroll time with the football, an offense that's been moving the ball against us here in the second half, and give them a chance to kick a field goal because we fear their field goal kicker. And so sometimes field goal kickers can influence a game even if they're not out there kicking a field goal. And I think, that's something to at least think about. And I'm not trying to get into the mind of the Lafayette Jeff coach, but certainly it is something that goes into the analytics is how good is the other team's kicker, and how much are we concerned that they might be able to kick a field goal if we give them time on the clock. It's kind of, whenever you played Tom Brady, you always worried that if you scored too soon, you were going to lose the game. And it's kind of the same thing if a team has a kicker like Lopez, a two-time all-conference kicker. And I will say this, credit to the kickers, because we've had kickers that have been game changers in some of these teams. And especially when you look at Carroll and Luers, who are still alive, their kickers are game changers. Bluffton had to start every drive on their 20. Luers was starting at midfield. It was a totally different game.
Yeah, right. Well, hey man, we thank you for coming on tonight. And I know that I won't see you this Friday just because of scheduling conflicts and such. So hopefully we'll get to do a state game together. And
I hope you understand, Shannon, that, I had a choice to be with you on Friday in 20-degree weather or take a trip to Cancun.
Yeah.
And I hope you're not hurt by the fact that I chose Cancun.
Well, I am a little personal inside the old heart right now.
You'd be right there with me if I said, let's go to Cancun, Shannon. You'd say, okay, somebody else do color. I'm on my way to Mexico. But no, I'll be following the Dons. But you know what? I almost can guarantee as soon as the Dons game gets over, I'm right on with the broadcast trying to find out how the Chargers did. So have a great time Friday night.
Yeah, all right. That's Brett Rump from 1380 The Fan. You can hear him every day, 4 to 6 on the Sports Rush. And I think we're ready to bring in our next guest here from Snider High School, Kamari Juarez. And I see him. There he is. Bright and ready. There he is. There's the man of the hour, I guess I would say. Congratulations on a great game, Kamari.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, Eric and I were talking about, you guys are down 21. At that point, what was kind of the mood on the, of the team being down 3 scores there in that first half?
The mood wasn't the best. It wasn't great at all. Everybody was hanging their head low, kind of sad, thinking we were going to lose. But for the most part, the seniors, we kept our heads high and went into halftime with a good mindset and talked to everybody and got everyone's minds right and came out in the second half playing Snider football.
Well, tell me about I think what changed the game for you guys. I think this was the game changer. This is what changed the momentum completely. And I've talked about the specialness of special teams, whether it's kicking the ball into the end zone like many people are doing and able to, or getting that big return or a block punt. You had the big kickoff return, 80 yards. Tell us about that play, what you kind of saw after you caught that kick.
We've been working on a new scheme all week in practice. So specifically for their type of kickoff. And when I caught the ball, I just told Brandon Logan to leave me and put him to leave me and try to find a hole. If not, to block somebody and to tell me to go and I will find my own hole, my own catch, right? So that's what he did, and I let him block somebody. Then I got in the middle, like the pocket area, what I was saying, like right there. And then I just looked to the right. I found a hole, and then.
Well, that was a game changer, and nobody was going to catch you in this instance. And that's what I would say. You're that type of player you are. You can switch a game. You've got, I call it silent speed. I don't think people realize how fast you are at times, but they find out real quick how fast you are, whether it's running routes or, kickoff returns and things of that nature. What, Eric, you got any questions for them?
Yeah.
Kamari?
Well, first of all, I think, you talked about things were down on the sidelines and then you came out with that big return. How did that really reinvigorate that team? Because you go on that 35-point run after that and really pull away at the end with the 41-27 regional victory. What was the sidelines like after that and really how people were able to kind of refocus in real time?
Really, I just feel like it gave everybody hope and put everybody on notice that was not ending on that day. So after that, the sideline, everybody was upbeat and ready to play ball from then on.
Sure. Talk about this season. The way you guys have bared, the first 2 games, that close one with Northside, the loss to Carroll, and then you go on this run that is continuing now. And you guys have looked really solid, clicking on really all 3 phases of the game, and especially offensively and defensively. Your relationship with Luke Hoppert, I mean, just talk about how that's grown. You 2 guys being together, getting the reps together, and really how that's kind of fueled what you guys have been able to do and bring this Snider team back to winning championships.
So me and Luke, we've been basically building chemistry since the end of 7th grade going into 8th grade through traction, 7-on-7 football. So basically we both came into Snider. We already knew each other and we already had somewhat of a chemistry. So over the past 4 years, we've just been building on it and growing closer and really doing that with the rest of our teammates and basically just letting everybody know that they're welcomed and that we love everybody as a Snider football team. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Sure. Yeah. What can you tell us a little bit about Valpo?
I haven't watched much film on them, but from the film I saw, they're a pretty good team. And from what our coaches say, from the past times they played them, they've always given a hard fought and battle, and they play to the last whistle. So it's not a game we should take lightly, or we should take no plays off. So if we want to win and we want to make a state run like a goal we have set for our senior class, then we got to come out. We can't play a first half like we did against Mishawaka or Northside. We have to come out and we have to do the best we can from the first whistle to the last.
Sure. Kamari, not to get too far ahead, obviously, because you guys are still playing, but you've committed to Eastern Michigan. Just talk about that process for you and really how, you've kind of found a home at Eastern and really what that recruiting process has looked like with you and the conversations that you've had with the coaching staff up there at Eastern Michigan.
I actually haven't committed, but
oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. But I understand what you were saying.
Talk about the recruiting process in general, just about what that's looked like for you, how you've been able to, take that feedback from the different coaches that you've talked to along the way and apply that to getting better at your game.
The coaches I've talked to, they've been real supportive and letting me know that they're watching me and that they want to see me do the best that I can. And I'm just trying to show the coaches what I can do and that I can produce for a good team and, well, for any team I can produce. And basically, that's it.
Sure. What's the if you had to pinpoint the best part of your game, what kind of separates you from maybe some of the other receivers in the SAC? What would you turn to first and say, this is what makes me so good, and really what you continue to work on and how you've been able to improve in the last year or so?
I say the thing that separates me from other receivers is my ability to track the ball and to win 50-50 ball situations.
Sure. How special has it been to play with this Snider group and really what you've been able to accomplish this year? I know you guys have gone the sectional drought for 3 years now to get some hardware, sectional, regional title. How special is that to see what this team's been able to do this year and really it all coming together this late in the season?
It feels good. It's very special because coming from last year and the sectional loss to Dwenger, our senior class, which was juniors last year. After the season last year, we all worked in the weight room and outside of the weight room to get better. And we just set a goal. We set a goal last year, and our goal was to make it to the state championship and to not be cut short like last year. So basically, this whole season, from the summer until now, we've been getting better week by week, day by day. just to make sure that our season isn't cut short like last year.
Well, Kamari, we certainly thank you for coming on tonight on Upon Further Review and just talking a few minutes about the Snider Panthers season and their run here in the postseason as you get ready for the big semi-state this weekend against Valparaiso as they come to town. And we certainly wish you the best of luck, and it's been an exciting year to watch you, and we wish you best in your future as well. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
All right. That was the talented Snider wide receiver, Kamari Juarez, and great showing again Friday night for he and his Panthers as they move on to semi-state, and we'll certainly keep our eye on that action. And from one semi-state coach to the next, we look at Class 2A, and we're going to talk a little bit about Bishop Luers football, and we'll bring in now another talented player who plays on both sides of the ball, Nick Thompson, joining us from the Bishop Luers Knight. First of all, Nick, thanks for joining us tonight here on Upon Further Review.
Yeah, appreciate you for having me.
Yeah, so another big run for this Luers team. You guys get the sectional and the regional trophy last Friday night against Bluffton. Just talk about this team. You know, you guys battle through and finish 500 in the SAC and now make this long run in the tournament that continues to go. I mean, what has been the ability for this team to turn the page and turn that corner? What was it about this team this year that you guys have been able to have the success late in the year?
Yeah, this team has just been really resilient. You know, we're hard on the process. You know, we're just trying to go out there and take nobody lightly, trying to go out there and just play as hard as we can for all 48 minutes so that we can come out with good wins, you know, make sure that we're playing hard the whole time. And basically, yeah, just not taking anybody lightly and make sure we come out and give 100% every time.
Sure. I know, we often talk about the SAC schedule and how some of the smaller teams, so to speak, Luers, Concordia, some of them that, the effects that it has on a deep postseason run. Talk me through that. I mean, you live that coming out of that SAC. I mean, how does that schedule, that slate, those games, that competition, how does that set you guys up? And really a lot of the other SAC teams up for a deep run and what you guys been able to do this season?
Definitely prepares us like condition wise. So we'll be in games with bigger schools and they have so many players that can definitely come in and give a whole bunch of like support to them. We're running a lot of Ironman football, you know, with players playing both sides. So it's more so just having that fatigue factor and making sure that it helps us to run and be able to play against those teams that aren't really used to those type of situations throughout the season. So,
hey Nick, Coach Griffith here. What side of the ball do you like to play, or what side of the ball do you see you playing, being a University of Toledo commitment?
I like defense a lot, and I love hitting people. But I've always felt like I was better at offense, but it just didn't. It didn't translate. So I'm just fine with hitting people on defense.
Yeah. Well, you've got 954 yards in receptions thus far. And here's a kickoff I believe you took back against Eastside. And I think that was a pretty easy run there for you. What is your University of Toledo looking at you at?
They're looking at me at safety.
Okay.
So they believe that I can come down and they believe in my hitting ability. They say I make a lot of good form tackles, and I'm good in the open space and making those tackles, and then I can basically cover and play any of their DB positions. So,
well, we saw there with the good reaction to the pass and getting a interception against Eastside, and then here's Stansky throwing up one to you. And talk a little bit about your passing offense, because I know at the beginning of the year, it was, you were kind of missing in the equation, but as the season progressed along, all of a sudden now you were seeing the ball quite a bit.
Yeah. So it wasn't really anything that really changed. Our passing offense has basically been the same since the beginning. It was just me, working and getting into the groove of the game. I feel like as the season went on, I got really good at finding my open spots and having that chemistry with Charlie and making sure that we know which routes are going to be open against different teams and different coverages, stuff like that.
Yeah, well, you're definitely a mismatch up for anybody on the outside, that's for sure, as we see some of your statistics here and being an all-around player offensively, defensively, and special teams. Have you had a chance to look at Andrean on film any?
Yeah, we looked at him a little bit on Saturday morning, so I got to see just various little instances of them, but nothing too special right now.
Did you get any takeaways from them? Because they are, I believe, the number 2 ranked team in the state, not at 9-3, and you guys are going to go play them up there, which is not an easy task. What can you tell us a little bit about them offensively?
Them offensively, they have, they got big guy Drake Bowen, but he really just out there running really hard. So it's just about us being able to stop their running attack. And then they have a couple of receivers out wide that can make some big plays. So we just want to stay ready in the secondary and make sure that we stop their running attack pretty fast.
Yeah, you talked about the Bowen kid. He's a senior, got 1,300 yards, averaging about 7.3 yards a carry, 21 TDs on the season thus far. And then at wideout, they have a Clax kid that's got over 1,000 yards receiving. So they do have some big-time players, don't they?
Yeah, definitely.
Now, when will you guys take off for that game? Are you guys leaving school earlier on Friday, or what's the trip up there? Because I guess they would be an hour behind us, I think.
So he hasn't really told us anything about the trip or when we're going to take off. It's just been rumors of us leaving early on Friday afternoon, but right now it's just a 2.5 hour, 3 hour charter bus trip for
yeah. That's always the tough one now, that you got to get on a bus and travel a little further than you're normally used to. So I'm sure that Coach Lindsay will have you guys primed and ready for Friday night. And Eric, you got anything else here for Mr. Thompson, question wise?
Just one thing, just how special has it been to be part of this Luers program the last 4 years and kind of see them where they've gone. I know you guys went down to state a few years back and now to be on the cusp of that again. I mean, just talk about this program and really Coach Lindsay year in, year out, getting you guys ready and getting you a chance to get to this point, and the players doing it on the line. Just how special is this team and what they're able to accomplish?
This team is very special. We came in as freshmen and we believed that we could at least make it to state, win state at least 3 times. Now we couldn't get it done. We couldn't get it done my sophomore year when we went to state, and we kind of got sidetracked last year. We didn't come out with as much fire as we needed to in that sectional championship game. This team has been fired up since freshman year. These seniors have been primed and ready to lead, running behind so many great Luers players like Brody Glenn and Carson Clark. They got us ready. So this team's been very special and been primed for this moment.
Well, we appreciate you coming on tonight, Nick, and joining us and talking a little bit about Luers. Great to have so many different teams and players and coaches throughout the year, and great to finally catch up with the Knights. And we certainly wish you the best at the 2A semi-state as you guys travel to Andrean. That's in Maryville this Friday night for a big semi-state game. The winner of that will head on to state, and we'll certainly be watching and rooting you on, and hope to see you guys make it down to Indy. But good luck this Friday.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right.
Thanks, Nick. Good luck, buddy.
That was Nick Thompson from Bishop Luers joining us on Upon Further Review with a little player profile. And Coach, this Luers team, we talked to Nick a little bit about it. The ability to go through that SAC schedule and see the light at the end of the tunnel, and the postseason arrives, and now we see this special run from Bishop Luers. They're primed. I mean, Nick talked about it. they've wanted to do this 3 years in a row, and
Right.
and now they have an opportunity to continue on and get down there again, get down to Indy and win state potentially this year. This is a really talented Luers team that has a really balanced offense and a great defense that's finding itself. And I think this team is a great one that's come out of our area this year.
Yeah, I mean, outside of Nick, Hogue and Jimenez, Gio, those two guys are talented players as well. They're getting the job done up front and establishing, like I said, a running game, because I think in the SAC they had a hard time really running the football with any consistency. You talked a little bit about last year. They just ran into a very hot, East Side team with Laban Davis. I mean, that, a lot of teams ran into him last year and couldn't get him beat. But they got a tough one to go at Andrean, and he talked about a couple of their players up there that I just mentioned. The Bowen kid, I believe, is the running back up there, and he is a tough kid, and he's been a tough kid for the last few years up there. And their quarterback is Henry. He's a senior, thrown for almost 1,800 yards, 73 completions, 22 TDs, and only 3 INTs. So they're going to face a very balanced team that can run it and throw it. So they'll have their hands full with Andrean.
Yeah, Andrean, the reigning state champion from a year ago, they beat Eastside by a field goal by 3 points in that semi-state. 17-14 last year. And so, this Andrean, another team that really, especially in Class 2A, talk about the private Catholic schools that succeed as well. This is another team that year in and year out comes in and is ready to play. And this should be a fun one up in Northwest Indiana, the region, on Friday night that could be a real whale of a game with some talented players out there.
Yeah, and I don't know what the success factor is with Andrean, whether or not, if they have another successful run here, does that mean they move up to 3A the following year? I think being in 2A has been very beneficial for a Bishop Luers, because I think when they move up, it was a few years ago, I believe, they were 3A, maybe wasn't as kind to them in that respect, but look, they're going to have their chances Friday night. If they go up there and not turn the ball over, do the things that they've been doing, they'll be right in the thick of things. That's for sure.
Yeah, and the run game is key for Luers too, just being able to grind out those games, because I think Stansky's put up big numbers all year. He's over 2,100 yards passing, but I think the running game for Luers too has been able to come, and they don't have one definitive running back that jumps off the page. For them, it's kind of running back by committee, and I think that's what we saw at Bluffton, against Bluffton Friday night. It was a big in that regard. So I think that should be a fun one. A lot of playmakers on both sides, on both teams, and especially in the 2A, when you get in guys that are playing both ways all game long, that should be an interesting side of things. Well, we can go ahead, Coach, if you want to look at some of the other games that are going on this weekend.
Yeah, we got a chance. Now that we're down some, we can talk a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll start with the bigger classes and make our way to the smaller ones. We'll start with 6A. Carroll gets their first regional championship ever. They welcome in the number 1 team in 6A, Hamilton Southeastern, who comes in undefeated as well in the North Semi-State here out at Carroll Stadium. And Coach, this is a big one again too. I mean, they're all big at this point, but the opportunity for Carroll to host the semi-state for the first time ever. It's first time playing at semi-state. First, they'll be able to host it, welcoming in a really good Hamilton Southeastern team. It's quite the challenge on their hand, but I think week in and week out, all season long, Carroll has lived up to those big challenges in the teams that they play.
Well, right now, Sagarin's got them about a 13-point underdog to the Royals, who've had a phenomenal year as well. And, you look at their team, they're led by Bradle, their quarterback. He's thrown for about 1,500 yards, only thrown 5 INTs. Alexander is a junior. He's a running back that's got over almost 1,300 yards, and they've got several receivers out that they throw to. So, they're going to see a little bit of a mirror image of themselves. Homestead played Hamilton Southeastern week 1 of the sectionals, didn't fare as well. At this time of year, and what I've seen Carroll do thus far, and I know, with Owen Shealy and the things that have evolved with that, and how this team has really rallied around that, sad situation, Owen passing last spring, summer. They're really a team that right now I think is going to be hard to beat. I just think they've got so much belief within what they're doing. They make the plays at the right time. Sullivan's playing beyond his years, and here's a kid that's a sophomore, and he's playing probably some of his best ball. And I think their defense has really, really been their backbone all year long.
Yeah, absolutely. Braden Steely, a name that we've heard about all year long. His, 13 tackles Friday night against Lafayette. Jeff, he throws in there a rushing touchdown. A guy that can get it on both sides of the ball. Ashton Pasetsky. Yes. I know some of his family members were reaching out to us on social media. Make sure you know about this kid, and he's been wonderful for them. Another double-digit tackle night. A lot for loss.
His mom's a teacher over at Manchester University. She's an English teacher. So, yeah, what a year he's had. Now he's only a junior, but right. He has been a very pivotal component of their pass rush in the number of sacks, and he really has a high motor, I think. And I think on Friday night last week he had another really good game.
Yeah. I mean, and it really goes down the line. I mean, Cam Hirschberger, his ability to get open and find, and he's maybe not going to put up 100 receiving yards a game and 3 touchdowns, but there's so many different weapons on this Carroll team that can get you at any moment, and offense and defense. And I think that's what's been really great about this team, and their ability to, they've won the big games, and now they're being challenged in those squeakers, and they've won those games too, against Northside and Snider this year, and now Lafayette Jeff at their place. And so, to go on the road, a long road trip at the regional level and do what they were able to do, now you come home, and it should be a fun one out at Carroll Stadium.
2 pivotal wins of the year, and I think Doug alluded to this when we had him on a couple weeks ago. He said, to get down to the state tournament, you got to go into hostile environments and win. They did that at Penn, and they've done that at Lafayette Jeff. And now they get the home field advantage for Friday night. And like you said, I think offensively they're spreading it around a little bit, and that gives them a huge advantage. I mean, I think Jaden Hill had a big game this past Friday night for them as well.
Yeah. So that one should be a great one out at Carroll, as the number 1 team, Hamilton Southeastern, comes to town to face the Carroll Chargers. Another one not too far down the road, Coach. We talked about it a lot with Kamari Juarez earlier on the show. The 5A North Semi-State at Spooler Stadium at Northrop High School, where Snider plays their home games. They welcome in the Valparaiso Vikings, who come out of regionals with a big win over Maryville, a 15-14 win, a 1-point win. Their coach, and this is another one that. Snider, we thought that they could get to this point just by the virtue of the way that they've been playing the second half of the season. I'm not going to sit here and say, Snider goes to semi-state automatically, after week 2, but they really have played themselves into the situation with great offense and lights out defense. And that's the recipe you need to make a deep run in the postseason.
Well, first and foremost, Valpo beat Maryville, which was the big upset in that respect. So kudos to them for going, beating Maryville, because I think Maryville had a team that they thought was going to go a long way. Right now Snider is a 14-point Sagarin rating point spread right now is about 14. One thing that stuck out to me when I was looking at some statistics today, Snider is I believe for the season right now, they are a plus 16 in turnover margin. That's phenomenal. I mean, that is, right. It has to be one of the top turnover margins in the state.
Yeah.
And if they can continue to do that, they're going to be a team that's going to be very hard to beat if they can pick up extra possessions and stuff. And, the two-headed monster at tailback with Level and Buchanan. We talked about Kamari and his abilities on the outside. Don't forget the Billingsies as well. Ferks, who's kind of found his way into some big plays here of last couple of weeks. So, and I tell you who's playing well for them defensively, Rohrbacher. He's only a junior. He leads them in tackles. But their defense is just a very good Snider defense. I mean, just overall, after 2 years of kind of, trying to find the right ingredients, so to speak, some of the kids that played early on as sophomores, now they're seniors.
Yeah.
And they're playing like it.
Yeah. Another talented defender that has really come on is Brandon Logan, just a sophomore,
right.
A Vanderbilt baseball commit who kind of plays that center field on the Snider defense at safety. And Coach, just real quick, if you maybe could touch on it a little bit, the wishbone style of watching some of the broadcasts and recaps of the game on Friday, the safety position on that wishbone against that became a crucial area. And Snider, that's where it kind of started for Snider with their defense. Brandon Logan doing that, the kind of the spying of the running back and who has the ball. That's such an intricate part of defending that wishbone style of offense.
Yeah, you got to have him. He's got to clear the quarterback most of the time, because the quarterback is it can be an unaccounted player in the wishbone. So you have everybody assigned to an assignment. And I think that showed up in that first half where they just were not, reading their keys correctly. And Mishawaka was just, 5-7 yards a carry. But in the second half, I think that also became something that they got used to. They kind of got themselves, confidence in it. And then they really played lights out from that point on. I mean, they shut them out. So, but yeah, Logan's been playing well of late.
Yeah. So Snider comes in, they will host Valparaiso at semi-state. Interesting note, I was talking about this to somebody the other day because I was a student at Snider at the time. Last time Snider and Valpo played was the semi-state at Spooler Stadium in 2002. And that Valpo team had one Jeff Samardzija, who went on to go play for Notre Dame and then the Chicago Cubs. And the Snider defense was able to shut him down and move on to state. Of course, Panthers were going to lose to Ben Davis in that one. But those were some exciting times. I think one of those semi-state games had a snow bowl, if I remember correctly. So those were so it's been 20 years since those teams have met, but that kind of became a rivalry in the early 2000s between Snider and Valpo. Looking at the 2A semi-state, we have Bishop Luers traveling to Andrean, that's outside of Maryville, to take on the Fighting 59ers, the Class 2A state champions from a year ago. And, Coach, this is going to be an old-fashioned Donnybrook between two powerhouse programs in Class 2A. The long bus ride for Luers, the time change, the whole 9 yards, getting out of school early, perhaps. But, I think Luers will be ready for the challenge. It's just physically, how these two teams will match up against each other.
Yeah, it'll be a tough assignment. Gaining an hour going there from a bus perspective, I think, is huge because it gives them a chance to get there a little bit earlier and get themselves, mentally focused and stretched out and all those things. But we've talked, quite a bit when we talked to Nick about this one, and I think we both agree that bottom line is Luers has got to be able to run the football and have some balance and keep Andrean at bay because they've got some weapons.
Yeah, absolutely. Their quarterback, Henry, last name Henry, first name Billy Henry, with over 1,700 passing yards, 22 touchdowns, and just 3 interceptions. So they're able to take care of the football, which is very important when you talk about the turnover margins in any game particular, but especially at the semi-state level. And we'll go ahead and move on then to the Class 1A matchup. One other team from our area, not inside of Fort Wayne, but definitely in the area. Adams Central travels to North Judson San Pierre. Most of the time, you'll just hear them called North Judson. They're the number 4 team in the state. Adams Central comes in number 2. Adams Central, undefeated, 13-0, has cruised really to this point, Coach. And then now they face another tough matchup of a top 4 team and North Judson that sits at 12-1.
Yeah, their first chance to get out on the road and take their show on the road. North Judson, I believe, runs a similar style of offense as Adams Central. Adams Central, I looked at, I think, kind of their last 3 ball games. First and foremost, turnover margin, they're a +10 over the last 4 ball games. Averaging 45.5 points a game, only giving up about 11.5. They've been great on 3rd down and 4th down. And, they're doing what Adams Central has done all year. I mean, they're a broken record to a certain degree with everything with Black and, they've got some good players and, but this will be a good test for them. Cause not to look past North Judson, what they may face is a possible rematch again, but, this one will be a dandy.
Yeah, this is the 3rd time in 5 years that Adams Central has crossed the 13-win threshold. In 2020, they went 8-3. The other seasons, 13-1, 12-2, 13-2, and now sitting at 13-0 at semi-state. That 35-0 shellacking of Carroll of Flora at regional. I mean, Northfield 41-13. South Adams, their rival in the sectional semis, 55-20. Southwood, the TRC champions, 56-14. So this team has been a mission on all year long, just under 47 points a game. Their defense just giving up just under 11, and part of that was the 20 against South Adams and the 20 twice this year. But this is a solid team all around. They were the state runners up a year ago. They have all intents and purposes of getting back there again this year as far as their goal. And so they have that one more step to get there. And then, but certainly can't pass up North Judson. They're there for a reason. A team in the northern part of the state. Their offense, 46.5 points per game,
right?
8.6 on defense. Their lone loss to Lavelle this year in overtime. You're seeing 60s and 52s and 45s, 74 in there for North Judson. So this is definitely, I think these are probably 2 teams that are very similar in, they play the 1A, 2A schedule and blown out a lot of teams. Now 2 teams that blow out other teams get to play each other.
Right.
And something's got to give. And so it's going to be really interesting to see.
Well, looking at the Sagarin ratings on this one, it's a 1-point differential between Adams Central and North Judson. That's how close they are. This one, I don't know. I go back and forth. Is this going to be one of those high scoring games, whoever has the ball last, or is this going to be a defensive battle where, offenses really struggled during the game to move the ball? That's kind of what I'm not quite sure what type of game we're going to get here between these 2 teams, because they're both used to scoring points. That's the interesting point. And like you said, something's got to give. So, can Adams Central's defense rise to the occasion? We're going to find out on Friday night. But I find Adams Central, man, I think they're another team that's just got a lot of confidence and have a lot of faith in what they do on both sides of the ball.
Certainly. And that wraps up the semi-state rundown here. We have 4 teams remaining from our area: 6A, 5A, 2A, 1A, 3 from Fort Wayne, 3 from the SAC. Should be exciting Friday night, Coach, and certainly we're looking forward to all the games. Of course, you can catch our show any way you get your podcast. We have our video podcast, obviously, here every Wednesday night at 7 on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter. If you want an audio version of the podcast, just search Upon Further Review SAC. It always helps to put that SAC part in there. And, anywhere, Amazon Music, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you can find us there. And if you want to catch us on the old-fashioned radio dial, every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock, we're on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. So tune in there. Just an encore presentation, really, of our podcast here. So you can listen again if you'd like. Some of us tend to do that. And, Coach, it's been another fun week. We still have, like I said, 4 teams left, and hopefully we can get some of them down to Indianapolis for the state finals in a week from now. And we're talking about those games next week, but should be a fun Friday night.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, we're hopeful that we're going to be able to do the Hamilton Southeastern at Carroll on Friday night. Caleb Hatch will be joining me. I'm not quite sure if that is going to be a stream only game or we will be on the airways, but stay tuned for that announcement. But yeah, it's been a great year up to this point. Hopefully, this Friday night, it's going to be a little chilly from what I'm gathering on the weather. Could be in the teens by the time we get through the night. So, bundle up warm. If you can't venture out, catch us on the radio. We'll be there with Caleb Hatch and myself calling it as Rump gets a suntan down in Cancun.
Yeah, well, that's great too. Just a side note, that's pretty cool that PFW gets to go down there and take part in some of those tournaments in Cancun, Mexico, of all places. So safe travels to the Dons and to Brett Rump, and we look forward to the call with Caleb and Coach on Friday night. Well, for Coach, I'm Eric Dukevich, better known as Dude. Thanks for joining us this week on Upon Further Review. Until next week, enjoy the games on Friday night, and best of luck to our area teams. Good night.